I am a 32-year-old male whose family owns and operates a chain of restaurants. My grandfather started with a single diner, and it grew over the years into a regional empire. I have always known that I would be part of the family business. My father, Bill, 58M, and my Aunt Ruth, 55F, run the company together. Our family dynamics have never been warm or expressive. Hardly ever, we talked on subjects other than business or grades. I didn't have a lot of friends during that time as I was always too preoccupied with my studies and getting ready to take over the family business one day. I met my wife, Crystal, 30F, in college. She was very outgoing and social, which is just basically the opposite of me. Crystal noticed me in class and took it upon herself to bring me out of my shell. She was my sole friend and she made me social the years I was in college. So it was after graduation that I decided Crystal was the one. So I asked her out, and she claimed she felt the same way towards me too, and that was how we started. I would take her home to meet my family, who, when she was around, seemed to like her. But the moment she left, they would start talking about how she wasn't from a restaurant background and that she didn't meet our standards. I was really angry but chose not to confront them then and there. I whisked Crystal off to her favorite beach for the weekend and then popped the question. She was surprised but said yes happily. I did text my family to tell them that Crystal and I were now engaged, but they didn't say too much, which I took as a good sign. Crystal had always been interested in event planning and had been saving money from part-time jobs during college to start her own business. When she refused, I tried offering her financial support, to which she replied, "It's my project, the only help I want from you is emotional help." My family, however, began to pile on the pressure in regard to the wedding. They wanted it to be a big social bash to make a statement amongst their aristocratic set of friends and associates in business. And when they got the feel that Crystal belonged to a middle-class family, they asked me to persuade her not to mention her family at the reception that they were arranging. I was nauseated by their attitude. Crystal is very family-oriented, and I wouldn't want to crush her world by telling her the truth as to what they originally wanted to take from my family. I told her a white lie, that I wanted to have our wedding somewhere private just for us two. Shocked, she asked about our family's involvement, to which I responded that it had been a huge dream of mine, and the family was okay with it. The following weekend we found ourselves in one of those picturesque mountain resorts, which cater to private weddings, and, in this case, had one scheduled for us. Immediately after, I called my parents. The news had meanwhile spread among my family. They were not particularly happy about it but decided to treat my decision as a planned one so as not to lose face. The day right after our honeymoon, Crystal went to her parents' place for a few days, and I went over to my side of the family's house. Naturally enough, I had to listen to my father and aunt on the topic of getting married without informing them or getting married in their absence. Once again, I had my chance to prove my words correct about speaking ill of Crystal. Well, it appears I had startled them with my frankness and was able to veer into a conversation with them on arranging a Thanksgiving dinner as a replacement for the wedding dinner. But honestly, I didn't want to be in this show at all and just did the whole thing for the sake of it because I know this could be a great networking possibility for Crystal's new business. My mom, Linda, 56F, my Aunt Ruth, and my cousin Tyler, 28M, were in charge of planning the event. It was nearing dinner time, and I knew that the time had to come when I should reveal the true mean faces my family made toward Crystal, but she surprised me really. She believed that from the start of the proposal, suspicion grew in her, but she chose to trust me. She said that she did what was coming. The Thanksgiving dinner was mixed. On the good hand, some of the guests were really interested in Crystal's business. On the bad hand, I can just scarcely recall my family talking to us for the night beyond Tyler. No sooner had the guests left, than my father called me into his study. I fully expected to be given some position in the family business now that I was married, as was tradition. But instead, my father said that it was my Aunt Ruth who was going to run the business since she had new ideas, and that I had been too busy with my marriage. I was in shock, and began to tell them the years of work I had put into this position. My father just replied that I was serious about the job, which was evident in the way I had married Crystal without thinking about the family reputation. Then he went on to disparage Crystal's small-time event planner business. My blood boiled, but I couldn't feel the words. I stood up and walked outside for a breath of fresh air, and my mom followed. Crystal had remained in the study and had quite the fight with my father about how they treated family. He laughed in her face and told her she and I could try becoming part of the family once she was on par with them. Crystal was upset, and so we returned to pick me up. We left and drove straight home. The day after, I phoned my father to tell him that nobody talks to my wife like that. He wouldn't talk about it. I left messages with my other family members about what had happened, and only my mother returned my call, pleading with me to calm down. She was the one who said we should move on for our peace of mind, and I went for it. We decided to just settle with our respective jobs because a busy mind preoccupies oneself with things that are genuinely worth our while. For months, my family was distant, and except for my mother calling a few times to know how we were doing, we hardly spoke to each other. During that period, I was helping Crystal with her business network, and her event planning was doing great. She was the talk of the town with the most unusual parties and truly unforgettable events. The speed at which she added customers was nothing short of incredible. In the space of a year, she had been profiled in a local business magazine as one of the rising entrepreneurs to watch. As for me, I decided to strike out on my own and put my limited knowledge of the restaurant industry to work by starting a consulting firm for new restaurateurs. It was hard at first, but with effort, I put my name alongside my own family name and not dependent on it. After not much contact for a year, all of a sudden, my family has started to reach out. I have received several voicemails and even one email sent to Crystal, saying that she missed us a lot and really flattered she could not have lunch to catch up with just Crystal. So we're both just confused and a little bit suspicious about this sudden change in heart after all those months of treating us like crap. I'm on the edge of my seat, curious yet torn between curiosity about what they want and an impulse to protect the peace that Crystal and I have built for ourselves. Part of me wants to hear them out, but a larger part remembers the hurt they caused and doesn't want to risk going through that again. Crystal says she'll support whatever decision I make, but I can tell she's wary too. I don't know what to do next. Should we let them explain their actions or proceed with our lives and move on with them in the past? Advice, appreciated, thank you. Update 1, thanks for the support and advice on my last post, guys. I needed to just reflect on the situation a little, and I wanted to give y'all an update of what's transpired since then. After a lot of deliberations with Crystal, we came to a conclusion that it was safe enough to cautiously answer my family's attempts at making contact. The agreement was we would listen to whatever they had to say, but we would be very careful not to get very involved very rapidly. I called my mom again and asked her outright what the sudden change of heart was all about. She said they missed us and they realized that they had been at fault about the way they had treated all of us, especially Crystal from the start. She said they wanted to make amends and get back to our lives. With all my doubts, considering their past behavior, I pushed for elaboration. That is when the truth came out. Apparently, their restaurant business has been down since the past year. Some of the older investors retracted themselves, stating they were not happy with the running and organization of the company. Now they wanted to revive the whole thing by making me join them so that I could save the family business, which also belonged to me or was at least a part of my inheritance now. I was so mad. Here there goes again. Just thinking of themselves and how we may come in handy for them. I told Mom that if this was their real intention for calling, then we were not interested to revive anything. Well, this isn't the end. A few days after this conversation, my cousin Tyler reached out to me in private. He confirmed what Mom had said about their business problems but dropped some details that she had completely omitted. In addition, Tyler said my Aunt Ruth's new ideas blew up in her face. She had been trying to expand the business quickly into new markets and was shooting from the hips without having done the necessary research and creations. Subsequently, a majority of their new locations failed a few months after being launched and, in effect, caused huge financial losses. Tyler also told me that my father and aunt were approaching their circles of business acquaintances, claiming that I was still working with the company as a silent partner. Thus, they were using my name and supposed continued involvement to try and keep investor confidence high. It explained why some of Crystal's clients had been asking lately about my family's restaurants. I was furious after hearing that. Not only because they were trying to push us into helping them, but in doing so, using my name in something I had not consented to, in order to sustain the business that was heading downhill. It was after that incident that Crystal and I finally talked about it. We both thought that, at this point, we had to do something for our reputations and businesses. We consulted a lawyer and were advised to write a formal letter of cease and desist to my family, stopping our name from being used by them in connection with their business. We also prepared a public statement for our professional social media, outlining that neither he nor I had any association with my family's restaurant chain. Again, an unusually hard decision because it meant putting the fracture in my family very public, but important for the protection of our own professional integrity. The fallout from this was huge. My father called me, oscillating between anger and pleading. He said I had betrayed the family, then in the very next breath, he would beg me to consider and come back to help them out. I stood my ground, saying that their actions had consequences and we were merely protecting ourselves. My mother and aunt called, too, trying to lay a big guilt trip on me about family loyalty and how I was ruining my grandfather's legacy. I told them exactly how they were the ones who pushed me away and now face the consequences of their poor decisions. Tyler has been so supportive through all this drama. He has been updating me on what is going on in the family and the business. He even hinted that, in such a case, he might as well leave, too, since he no longer believes in my father's and aunt's management. Crystal and I are barely hanging on. Her event planning business barely managed to stay afloat, and my consulting firm has gotten by with picking up more clients. We both put our minds to work and tried to take care of each other as best as possible. We're also taking other precautions to protect ourselves. We have retained a PR firm for reputational management in case something blows up, and we're doing double and triple diligence on researching potential clients and business partners to ensure that none of them are affiliated in any way with the operations my family has been involved in. It's been really rough these past couple of weeks, but we've been staying strong. Seeing how my family's efforts to reconnect with us were only for personal gain, in a way it did reinforce the determination we already had to have nothing to do with them. Surely, I will keep you posted if it will have developed into something significant already. Thanks to everyone once again for your support and advice. It truly means more than you can believe right this moment. Update 2. It's been a while, almost some months since the last update, and so much has happened. I just wanted to drop in here and let you all know what's been going on. Well, the good news first, Crystal is pregnant. We are absolutely in joy and on our way to parenthood. We came to know this a few weeks back and have been preparing for this new beginning in life. Her event planning business turned out so well that she was able to hire a small team, so she will be able to ease off a little during her pregnancy. My consulting firm is also growing at a steady pace. I started taking a few high-profile clients, which got us noticed very quickly in the industry. It feels great to be successful on your own terms without trading on your family's name. Now for the not so good. Although my family has lightened up a lot after the cease and desist letter and public statement that we made, they haven't completely backed down. They are very subtle but real troublemakers. We learned through Tyler that my father and Ann had been spreading rumors in their business circles that Crystal's success is all about connections they provided her. That we have good relations and our public distancing was just for show. This has raised some issues of ambiguity among our clients and business partners. We have had to spend too much time trying to tell others that we are not involved in the business of my family, that Crystal's success is something on her own. To make things worse, my mother came by our house unexpectedly last week. She was obviously emotional and began begging us to help the family. She said that they are on their way to bankruptcy and will probably have to sell some of the original restaurants started by my grandfather. This saddened me a little as those restaurants held all of my childhood memories with them, though I collected myself thinking back at how they treated us and remained tough. I told my mother that I felt sorry for them to have all those problems, but it was all because of what they have done and how they had chosen to handle their business-related issues. We weren't going to risk our financial standings nor reputations to clean up your mess. Crystal, being the more soft-hearted one, suggested that maybe we could say something or offer some advice on how they can make things right without getting too deeply involved. I gave into this as a compromise, thinking it could be enough as it might stop their tries to bring us back down. We met my parents and my aunt at a neutral location, a little coffee shop downtown. Crystal and I presented a few general ideas to them on how they could cut costs, reorganize their business, and possibly save the core of their business. We were very clear in saying that is as far as we were going to be involved and that we were not going to give them any money or have our names on their business. My father and aunt seemed loath to accept that this was all we were willing to do, but my mother did seem much more grateful that at least we were doing something. As we were leaving, she sort of hugged me and whispered an apology for everything that had happened. It was the first genuine moment I'd had with her in years. Afterward, the sense of closure was palpable for Crystal and me. We had done what we could, had drawn lines in the sand. We prayed that was the end of it. But a week later, we received disturbing news from Tyler. My father and aunt took our suggestions and twisted them in their death throes, telling their remaining investors that we were advising them and actually on our way back to take over the company's leadership. They were trying to get someone to give them an emergency infusion of cash. We were shocked and indignant. It seemed that whatever we did, they would be determined to use us for their object, whether it were the truth or not, whether we wished it or not. After much discussion and soul-searching, Crystal and I have made a difficult decision. We are moving. We've just had an amazing opportunity come up that will let both of our businesses expand into a city 3 hours away. It's close enough that we can serve our existing clientele, but far enough away, not that it will stop my family from trying to intrude on our lives even there. But for our peace of mind and the future of our baby that is on the way, it is a necessary step. Tyler gets the message and has assured us of timely information if there should be any important occurrence running the family business. As we prepare for this move and as we prepare for the baby, we are thinking positively about the changes this will bring. Super excited for that difference and raising our kid in surroundings free from the poisonous influence of my relatives. I shall update all of you once we have started staying in our new home. Thanks for all the support which you all are providing in this journey. Update 3. It's been about half a year since my last update. The first and most important one is that Crystal and I have acquired a new little human. We're now the very proud parents of a beautiful baby girl named Sophia, who entered the world 3 months ago. She is absolutely perfect, and becoming her parents means the most wonderful feeling of joy, sleepless nights, and love greater than we ever thought possible. We moved to the new city about a month before Sophia was born. Talk about crazy. Because obviously, too, Crystal was heavily pregnant with all our possessions packed into boxes. We were in that time of rushing ourselves and trying to get everything just right. And the new house is just awesome. Slowly, we are adapting to living in it. Both of our businesses relocated perfectly fine. We have retained most of the clients we had back there and are beginning to form new ones over here. In everything regarding home, it has been pretty quiet since we moved. The distance does help in keeping our boundaries. We had just one big incident that I would like to share with you. A week after Sophia was born, my mother somehow managed to find our new address, actually showing up there unannounced. We believe either because of some well-meaning but misguided distant relative or my brother, who I strongly suspect from the beginning was covertly feeding her information. Walking through the door with gifts in her hands and tears in her eyes, she begged to see her granddaughter. Crystal and I stepped back in shock. After all that occurred, neither of us had said a word to my family about the pregnancy and birth. Crystal, being as sweet as I suppose one can be, agreed to let my mother into her apartment to see Sophia for a moment. On her visit, my mother apologetically kept sorely regretting everything that has happened. She told the family business had finally gone bankrupt, and in the process of losing everything she lost, as she fully realized she has left the hugest part of family, me and children. She said she had left my father as she couldn't bear the toxic environment. I was feeling sorry for her a little, yet telling her definitely that one visit could not indemnify years of wrong treatment. I mentioned that if she really wanted to be in Sophia's life, it would take proving for a while that she had really changed. We agreed to very limited, supervised visits, starting with video calls. Ever since, we have had a few video calls with my mother. She genuinely does seem to have seen the light and wants to be a better person and grandmother. However, we remain skeptical. No visits have been made in person, and we pointedly stated that if she sought to involve us in family issues or business, we would cut off contact again without any further ado. And as for the rest of my family, we have heard through my mother that the situation has got worse. My father and my aunt are both going to be charged with legal cases. Apparently they made these somewhat questionable financial decisions in their desperate attempts to save the business. Tyler left the company and is trying to get a fresh start on his own, just like I did. Crystal and I are both really settling into this new life in Westcliff. Her event planning business is pretty lucrative in this new town. Actually, she has been convinced by some friends to think about writing a book on how to creatively plan events following a budget. My consulting firm is doing well, and I may even hire an associate to help with my workload. I am emotionally stable from top to bottom, mostly in realizing how grateful or appreciative of life I am to have her in my life, through the hustle. More importantly, we are enjoying each second with little Sophia. Watching her grow and discover the world around her is just the most amazing experience. We are determined to make a loving, stable environment for her, free from the kind of family drama I grew up with. We're also making a circle of friends here, who actually feel more like a family than my blood relations ever did. It's good to be surrounded by people who value us for who we are, not because of what we can do for them. It's so, just thinking over it all, what happened in the past couple years left me filled with some sorrow, both at the loss of family relations and happiness, mostly at how Crystal and I stood by, creating a path of life. Some challenges that we meet in life could really have torn us all apart, but in turn, they have only brought us closer. I don't want to predict the future of my family. Perhaps my mother will continue progress in order to benefit from life with us. Probably my father and aunt will get punishment for their deed and realize how bad it was. Or maybe we will live on as we do now, for the most part, separately from them. Despite all, I am in no doubt that Crystal, Sophia, and I will be there for each other. We've become our tiny family unit, built on so much love, respect, and support for one another, if anything. End of line. Thank you to all of you for your support throughout such a long and complicated journey. Advice and encouraging words were received, and worth more than you probably know. So though we might very well not update for a while, do know that we're doing well. It's a happier life than ever.